Back here on HQ Spotlight, just in case you missed our segment with B-Mac and Charles Davis, we know the Cowboys getting some much-needed wide receiver help today. Getting George Pickens from Pittsburgh, the Steelers, they're going to reportedly be getting draft compensation, including a third-rounder and some other pick swaps. Now, Pickens is entering the final year of his rookie deal. 59 catches, 900 yards, 3 touchdowns this past season. So now we have Dak Prescott throwing to George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. So with George Pickens on the move, we're kind of thinking of teams that maybe still need to make a trade. And for that, let's welcome in Tyler Sullivan. Tyler, always good to see you. The Steelers obviously need to fill that wide receiver hole. We know DK Metcalf is there, but who else could they target? What other moves could we see the Steelers potentially do here before the season gets going?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think they need to replace George Pickens. Like you said, I mean, as much as we said, okay, his future was in doubt. He was in the final year of his rookie contract, as you noted. He was in a lot of trade rumors before the NFL draft, so the writing was on the wall. But I looked at it as, why move off of him? I get the contract situation, but you look at this offense with George Pickens, with DK Metcalf, that was going to be a dangerous duo. Now, you need to find the other outlets in the passing attack for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially when you don't know who their quarterback is going to be. We assume it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, but when and if he gets to town, who is he going to be throwing the football to? So to me, I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers as clearly in the market to try to find another wide receiver. If you look into the trade market, maybe you look at the Las Vegas Raiders. Jacoby Myers is someone on kind of a lower under the radar scale, is someone who I think they could possibly look at. You just saw Gabe Davis. If you want to look on the free agent market, he was just released today. So there's options here for this team, but for an offense that's going to throw a little bit more when and if they get Aaron Rodgers, you need depth at wide receiver, which currently they don't have.
And so, of course, we know George Pickens making the move from Pittsburgh over to Dallas. So that brings the Cowboys up next on this list. So we know that they've needed a wide receiver for quite some time. They addressed that issue, but they've also needed a running back for quite some time as well, Tyler, and to up that run game.
It's absolutely true, right? I feel like I go on HQ every other day talking about the Dallas Cowboys' lack of a running game, but it's something that they need. Jerry Jones did a great job today getting George Pickens and clearly filling a massive need. They needed another wide receiver opposite of CeeDee Lamb for the last few years, and the same thing can be said about the backfield. You lose Rico Dowdle in free agency, who was your most productive, your lead back last season, and you replace him with fifth-round rookie Jaden Blue, and in free agency, Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders? That doesn't really do it for me. This is a Dallas Cowboys rushing
Tyler,
offense.
Retweet.
It really was, right, Haley? I mean, there
bad.
wasn't much there. Fewest rushing touchdowns in the NFL last season, 6th lowest rushing yards per game in the NFL. And they really haven't improved. If anything, they've gone backwards. So for me, I'm looking at two guys in the final year of their deal, very similar to what they did here with George Pickens. You look in New York, Breece Hall's in the final year of his rookie deal. Travis Etienne in Jacksonville, he's another guy in his final year. Feels like there's a new regime in both of those organizations. Maybe.
Stay away from Etienne. We'll give you Tank Bigsby, but stay away from
Regime changes typically mean that guys from the previous regime are not going to be long for that organization. Both of that is the case here with Breece Hall and Etienne. So again, guys to keep an eye out for Dallas.
Haley, what say you? Breece Hall sounds better, right, than Etienne in Dallas?
Kind of. Actually, kind of. I'm mad. You got Jordan Lewis from us.
Correct.
Like, that was one of my sad offseason moves there. So I would take Travis since you took Jordan Lewis.
That doesn't seem equal.
I don't know what to tell you. You're asking me my thoughts.
I'm playing GM in Duval. All right.
Jackson's a mean GM.
Yeah, I stand on business, Tyler, okay? I don't mess around when it comes to my Jags. Also, I feel like I'm living in a simulation where I heard Jerry Jones did a good job. I was like, whoa, like the day has come. This is crazy. All right, let's go to the Minnesota Vikings because they find themselves on your list as well, Tyler. So what pieces do they need to try and pick up if they want to finally get out of that wild card round this upcoming season?
Yeah, I would look in the secondary here. I would look for them to add an outside cornerback. Of course, you have Byron Murphy as your nickel corner. But right now, if you have it penciled in on their depth chart, it's Isaiah Rodgers and Mekhi Blackmon, who's coming off a torn ACL. And this is a secondary that really struggled last season. 4th most passing yards per game allowed. and that's really been their only weakness. I look at this roster, and specifically on offense, because a lot of the talk is going to be about J.J. McCarthy coming in. It's perfectly set up for a young quarterback. Good offensive line, fantastic weapons at the skill positions, and a really good front seven with Brian Flores as your defensive coordinator. The only thing that really gives me pause in terms of developing J.J. McCarthy is, well, what happens if this secondary keeps giving up big plays, and now you're asking your young quarterback to continue to go throw for throw in a given game? That's something that could hurt or at least alter the development of J.J. McCarthy. So again, this is a area of this team that should be very good. Again, they were almost the #1 seed in the NFC last season. So again, that to me, a secondary, a boundary corner, is something the Vikings should be looking at.
Let's talk about their NFC North rivals and the Lions, because this was the team that just really could not escape injuries last season on the defensive side of the ball. And that is kind of where we're looking here, Tyler, in terms of their needs and what more moves they should do.
Yeah, and I'm looking at an edge rusher, and this is something that we talked about last year, too, even before the injury to Aiden Hutchinson. But now that he's on the way back, that's still a need. They have Marcus Davenport, who they signed a year ago, but again, another one of those Lions players that dealt with injury, missed the entire year. He's going to be your guy opposite of Hutchinson, and sorry, that doesn't really strike fear in opposing offenses right now. So to me, this is a Lions team that is ready to contend for a Super Bowl. They have done a phenomenal job of building their core at the draft. Hutchinson, one of those foundational players that they found in the draft. Now is the time to push your chips in the middle and try to really go big game hunting in the trade market. And specifically, I'm looking at a dude in Cincinnati, Trey Hendrickson, who just led the NFL in sacks a year ago, who's still without a long-term contract. We don't necessarily know what his future is going to be in Cincinnati. If there is any sort of a chance that you can acquire a player like that, I think it would be in the Lions' best interest to do it, because again, this is a team ready to contend for a Super Bowl. They were the #1 seed in the NFC a year ago. You put Aiden Hutchinson and Trey Hendrickson on either side of opposing on a defense, that is a scary sight to behold.
Tyler, I don't know if you're aware, but I'm a big cat kind of gal, and so the Bengals are that's my second team. I cheered for them on their.
I'm trading all your guys.
Yeah, what the heck? I feel like this is a personal vendetta against my teams to like trade away all of the big pieces. Luckily, the Ravens are not. They're not in my teams per se. My AFC North teams are stacked up because I got the Bengals. My dad's family's from Pittsburgh, so I don't have any room for the Ravens. So they had Malachi Starks. Let's talk about them in the first round of the draft. So does that suffice their needs in your eyes, or is that still an area that Baltimore needs to address here in the offseason?
Yeah, I still would look at the secondary for something for them to add to. Malachi Starks and Kyle Hamilton, that is going to be a really fun safety duo in 2025 and beyond. But to me, I still think that you could look at corner. Yes, you were able to draft Nate Wiggins a couple of years ago. You have Marlon Humphrey, but the thing about the Ravens last year, they were just such night and day defensively. As you can see here, they were last in the NFL in passing yards per game for the first 10 weeks. And then across the board, somehow they just flipped the switch and were absolutely awesome. If I am the Ravens, I'm not taking the chance that what you saw at the tail end of last season is what you are. It's probably the answer is somewhere in the middle. And if that's the case, I'm trying to address it early before it becomes a problem as you contend in a very competitive AFC North. And for me, I'm looking at the Miami Dolphins. Jalen Ramsey's, is he looking for a trade partner? Is he not? Is he going back to the Dolphins? We don't necessarily know. That would be a guy that I would keep my eye on, because the Ravens, they've always kind of looked at those veteran players. Never been too shy to add somebody like that. You see it on the offensive side of the ball the last couple of years. Derrick Henry, you have DeAndre Hopkins. I would be curious to see if Jalen Ramsey would be someone that they could bring in to bolster that secondary.
Yeah, it really is crazy, that flip of the switch we just saw there weeks 11 and on the defensive side of the ball for the Ravens. Tyler, we certainly appreciate it, even though you've been trying to trade away all of the big players from my teams, but we'll look past it. Getting a look at the odds to win the Super Bowl. We just talked about the Ravens there. Tyler saying they need a little bit more help in the secondary. The Ravens are 7-1, second best odds to win it all, only behind the defending champs, the Eagles. They are the favorites to run it back at plus 650. 50.
I don't see the Cowboys or the Jags on this list, Jacqueline.
I like that. We move in the shadows.
Right,
that's good. Shadows,
under the radar.
The AFC South is a winnable division. I don't really know about yours. We got to turn our attention to the ice because 2 home teams dropped a game in the playoffs in the second round. So which one should we be worried about? We discuss with Pete Blackburn coming up on the other side.